On this page, I'm gonna create a color story, okay? I don't know if a lot of you are familiar with what's a color story. Usually your mood page has some type of color story that you will be using. So it's best for everything to correlate with each other. You have to think of it this way. If you have a mood page and a color story and then a customer profile, everything needs to be in the same story. They go to the same club, they go to the same dinner places. You get me? Perfect. Same Pinterest story, everything. It just needs to correlate. Because if anyone sees this and you're presenting it, it needs to make sense to them without guessing. There's no second guessing when you're looking at these presentations. So I added different images, like I said, but let's just say I just want this edge of this picture seen. Oh, of course not. Sorry for that. I got used to too much light. So, okay, everybody, right here. So then what we see here is, I changed it. But now I'm gonna show you how to select. So let's just say I wanna use my wand. This is what I meant with the wand. So if I click down on the wand, you'll notice this magic wand tool. Most of Photoshop defaults to quick selection tool. We don't need quick selection tool right now, we need the wand tool. Now, if I were to click on the image, making sure I'm in the layer that I need, which is this one, and by the way, that little eye, it takes away the preview, does not take away the preview. You see that? Sometimes you're like, oh, what's the image underneath that? I don't want to move it. Oh, quick way to view it. Click and unclick. Okay? So then I'm making sure that my layer is selected that I'm working on. I double click it. But you notice that it's clicking more of the images on the bottom, but they're not in the same layer. Why is that? It's because it says right here to click all sample. You see the little check right here? Sample all layers? No. I don't want to sample all layers. I don't want all layers to be selected. So I just unclick that. So with Photoshop, you need to make sure what you're toggling. I think you've noticed one little check mark changes everything. So that's the part that most people get very upset with. Okay, you notice I clicked that again, and guess what? I already have it. And why do I know I was gonna get that? We're gonna play with one before we go into making that color story. And the color story will be very straightforward. Okay, right here, you notice there's tolerance, 50, was anti-alias, was contiguous. Okay, what does that mean? I chose this image because you notice it's mainly orange and then it has a very contrast of black, correct? So you guys can really see what I mean. If I were to unclick contiguous and unclick anti-alias and then choose continuous, what's contiguous means? It just keeps going. It continues. Just think of it that way. Contiguous means continuous. So if I were to select this orange, do you notice that it selected anything that's within that color but that continues? Look, this is selected because it continues with this one. Does that make sense so far? It's a little, you just have to get used to it a little bit more. My tolerance means how many, like from the selection, how similar the color is. It's in 50, it's a high tolerance. If I were to change this to 10, and I click on the same spot, you notice how little that clicked. That's why. So if I were to put this in 50 again, it clicked everything. So in other words, it's telling you that orange selection that you chose, I'm only selecting anything that's within a 50 different shades. Does that make it better for you guys to understand? Meanwhile, if I were to put the 5 and I click on this, oh, I'm only gonna be selecting that shade of orange, but 5 different ones from there. That's it. And that's why it's so tiny. But why is contiguous a thing? It's because it's saying anything that's next to each other. That's why the difference is it's not selecting anything else. It's just selecting any of those shades next to each other. Now, if I were to change it to anti-alias, oh, why am I selecting different ones? Because it's saying any color that's in the image that's similar to the color you chose. It does not need to be together. Meaning, I'll click in the black. It's not really working, but if I were to tell me, oh, I want to click all of the black, maybe I need to change my tolerance. Maybe let me put it at 50. Then it selects most of the black within that 50 range, anywhere in that image. So the good news about one, it might not make sense now, but it will make sense later, because you have to get used to selecting and not selecting what's contiguous. You can have both. It's a very different selection if I have both. It's just having this only. Now, for my purpose right now, I don't want to erase her face. But I do want to have this section erased. So what I do is I can take my lasso and I press Option, and you see how it says minus again? I'm just going to take that away. I'm going to take that away from the selection. If I want to add to the selection, I just press Shift. Look, I just added to the selection. While pressing Shift, that's when I add my selection. You can use the trackpad. I usually use the tablet and pen. I'm not using one right now because I don't really need it. But sometimes it just makes it easier. And I heard some people say about Procreate, that's the thing about Procreate that I don't like. You cannot be so specific with your selection. It is good for an iPad. I do use it a lot. But the problem is for me, when I'm selecting, it takes so long. So that's my only issue. And then for erasing it also takes really long. So for me, I just like to delete. And there you go. But maybe, you see those little weird little edges there? There's a few ways to change it. You can go to your blur tool. Everyone's familiar with the blur tool. They just have not used it in Photoshop. They call it something else, I think, in Facetune. It just blurs. So if you double click it, and you have the strength, same thing. It's like, think of a blur tool as somebody trying to erase it, kind of, but the strength of how much they want to erase it. So I'm going to put it in 80%. And you see it's blurring that. You see that? You guys have used this. They don't call it blur. I think they call it, I forget how you call it in other, like Facetune, sometimes like any photo apps in your phone that you want to like revise, you just blur. So you can just blur that. And you can make it bigger. How do I make my brush bigger? There's two ways. And right now you can see me going really big selection, really small brush, really. Why? Because I'm using the brackets. I don't use, that's the brackets, but you can go Control and you can change it. You can go, oh, I want this to be much bigger, like 268, and that's it. Now, if you're not really sure, just come back and it's fine. Just try your best. And I think she looks better blurred anyways. Correct? Now, let's just say, for now, I'm just going to give you this tool, because there's another way to do it, but it's a lot more advanced. And it's faster, but you need to get used to it. So then, but maybe I just wanted to erase it. If I press E and I go to the eraser right here, I can erase that. But you see how harsh my erase tool, it just made it really harsh. So you press Control while you click, and you can choose how soft you want it. Very different. It's not the straight line. It's very soft. It leaves you like a very, like a blurry edge. And what you can do is you can control the flow and the opacity. I don't want it to be 100%. Maybe I want very, very tiny ways of erasing it. And I can click it. You notice like I'm controlling I even want less opacity now. I need to click a lot just to get into that situation. just to erase something. Does that, you can control the softness and the hardness on how you erase things too. You can use it to make it more detailed. You don't have to use it like I'm using it right now. But for now, because I think my mood page will look much better with very soft image, I'm just lightly touching it, okay? And before you know it, you can barely see it. I can do a better job on this, but it's okay. So then, same thing. I want to make this bigger. I go to the V as in Victor, move tool. And I just make it bigger if I wanted to. And she's looking interesting now. Okay, and that's it. Now, so far I feel like we have played with the move tool, the lasso tool, some of the one, and then how to crop, how to clean edges, how to layer, and I can see all my layers, how to drop shadow really quickly. This is my tool right now, for now. Now, in reality, I'm gonna make a color page. So what we're gonna do is Command N, and I'm gonna look for print. Or sometimes if you have already artboards that's been done before, it's already giving you as recent. So just click on that because it's already done. Just make sure it's 8.5 by 11, 300 dpi, RGB color, and with a white background. Great. We're gonna save it, and we're gonna do color palette. Also, save in your computer. Remember, if you're using the computers in the lab, make sure to save it in the desktop because either you can email it to yourself. Sometimes you can do in Creative Cloud, but you need to make sure that Creative Cloud has uploaded that file completely. Okay? That's the tricky part. That if your file is not uploaded completely, let's just say you worked on it for 2 hours, and then it didn't upload completely, and you go home, it didn't save all the steps, then you have to redo it again. That's where you have to be really careful, guys, okay? So we're gonna do a color story. You know what? I like this image for the color story. I'm just gonna put it behind it because why not? I made it bigger, but I think it's too starch. So this is what you do. You see, I think it's too bright. So what you do here is the opacity, you see right here with layers, opacity and fill. The opacity and fill is about the same thing. You can make it, if you click on that little 100% and you slide it over, ta-da, done. I just took away the image to be less blurry because I don't want it to fight with my colors. So I'm just make sure to save it always. And this is where it gets fun. You can do whatever swatch of color you want. You can do circles, you can do marquees, you can do whatever you want. I'm not gonna stop you. You can even do shaped hearts. Doesn't matter. I just need color story, okay? So meaning, I'm gonna put a marquee right here. And you can see exactly, you notice how we discussed how shift makes you have same ratio, meaning, look at my square. This is with no shift. When I press shift down, it becomes a real square. No shift, shift. Does that make sense? So shift just helps you make everything even. So for now, I'm gonna do color stories. I'm just gonna create a square. You can make a circle, which is right here. If you press down, there's a circle here too. Okay. I like that orange a lot. So what I'm gonna do is press I or go to my eyedropper right here. The eyedropper just matches the color by the pixel. So you see how my cursors change? Look at the squares right here right now. If I click on it, look at it. You notice? It's changing my selection. That's what the eyedropper tool does. Okay? So this is what I'm gonna do. I like this orange. But I'm like, wait a second, this orange does not match the one in the picture. That's when you go Command plus, if you want, or to scroll to really zoom in. You really want to zoom in, you can zoom in. And then if you're using a trackpad, you can use your fingers to navigate. 2 fingers, as you know. But if you're using a PC and you're not, oh my goodness, I'm using a mouse, your friend is the spacebar. If you use the spacebar and you just drag, you see that? I'm moving it with a little hand. Okay. So now we have the eye drop, and I'm like, oh, this is the orange that I wanted, not that gray looking orange thing. No, this one. Okay, perfect. I go back to my other page. You can see my marquee still selected. You're gonna go Shift F5 and make sure it's in foreground, and you say, okay, I'm gonna do this again. There's another way to do it. You go to Image. Hold on a second. You go to Edit. You go to Fill. And making sure it's in foreground, because that's where my selection of the orange is. I go here. Done. Now, I am not deselecting anything. I'm going back now to my Move tool. You notice how it has that little squares right now? If you press Alt or Option in the Mac, you notice how I have 2 little cursors now? Look, Alt, no Alt, Alt. Does that make sense? Look, look. You see it, right, guys? The difference between my cursors. You see it, like you can see it right here. There's 2. Now, if I press Alt, it's gonna duplicate it. You use this also for slides in PowerPoint too. So if you click on this and you press Shift at the same time, it's making this duplicate. And not only that, if I press Shift, you notice the little lines, the guidelines is straight. And that's it. So you press Shift and you let it go. And that's it. You have another copy. You don't need to do anything else. Now I go back to my color story, and you can do Command minus or Control minus to unzoom. And I'm like, I like that yellow. Let me use that yellow. More like a beige. And let's just say you're like, okay, let me do eye. Let me get that little rose pink. But it's a beige color. I'm not so sure if I like it. You can double click on your square, and you see it shows you the picker. You can make it darker if you want. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna make this darker. I'm gonna make this more beigey tone. And if you're not sure where you started, you see the bottom one? That's showing you the first selection that you did. You can click on it and start from over again from your selection. So then we go here, and ta-da, done. As you can see, everything's in one layer so far, correct? We're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna Move tool. We're going to Alt, Shift, and you're gonna see something. And we're just going to, why is it hiding from me? Hold on a second. Hold on a second, let me show you. Yeah, Move tool, and you can see that is showing me exactly the alignment. You notice that little line? That's telling me that's the distance that I did before. And that's it. You're gonna go back and you're gonna go, okay, you know what? I like that burgundy. That's a good color for this collection. But I don't want it to make it so dark. Maybe it's like a black burgundy. It's not a black, but it's a black burgundy. And then we go here and we color it, and I'm okay with that. Now, for my purposes, you see that? We do the same thing, Move tool, Alt, and we're gonna look for that little line. But it's not showing up, I don't know why. But there it is. So there you go. Now after that, let's just say I'm like, oh, you know what? What I really want was a gradient, a gold gradient. I want lame. So what you can do is like lame is a fabric it's only done out of metallic gold thread. That's what lame is. So then you go into gradient and you go right here. So when you click gradient, it's G for, if you drop shadow circular, you go here. If you drop shadow here, you see this is gradient. You're gonna notice all the colors here, and it shows you exactly how you want the colors to be. And right now it's iridescent, it's pastels, it's already made for you, so you don't have to think about it so much. Okay, so you don't have to, like, Illustrator is much easier with gradients, by the way. Where are the oranges? Maybe, yeah, let's do this one for now. No, actually no, let's do oranges. Let's do this one. And you're gonna notice, since this is selected, gradients are just gonna show you exactly where to start. You notice that little, I click it, but I can control where my gradient is at. See that? Okay, done. But then I'm like, oh, I don't know if I like it. I don't know if I like that color or not. It's a good start. So you can double click it, and you notice on your layer of the gradient, and you can actually change it. You can change the angle of it. You can change all the things that you want. You can even change the color of it if you want. It's within that space. That's why I used already pre-made gradient. Okay? But for now, this is fine. Now, let's just say, I'm like, I like the color, but it's still not gold. What happens if you deselect? You can always Command Z, but maybe you don't have. What happens if you deselect it, but now you cannot go Command C because then it will change everything. You have to start again. Just take your marquee, select it, go back, and you don't have to be that precise because it's going to select the object anyways. You notice that? And ta-da. You can even use your arrows, like, oh, that's not perfect. Let me use your arrows if you want. So for that one, I will say I don't want a gradient. Maybe let me. I'm not so sure if I want a gradient or not. So you can just go here. Oh, it's because I selected that. Okay. So maybe it's here, and that's it. But maybe I don't want another color. Maybe I just want like a fabric. You can also do fabrics if you want, because your color page usually shows fabric. I just want, let's see, I just want a lame gold fabric. Gorge. This is good. Perfect. Done. I'm just gonna drop it in. You can also screenshot it, but look, oh no, it doesn't really match the size of my thing. Maybe it does if I make it smaller. It does. But my layers at the bottom. Oh no, what do I do? How do I bring it forward? You can go to the layers, click and hold, and move it up. And just drag it down. There you go. And you're not really sure, oh no, it's a little off. Use your arrows, look. It moves in very, very tiny spaces. Okay? Now, I'm like, oh, I don't like how it is in the page. I want to move a little bit to the right. I click on my layer, but I want the rest. I press Shift, and I move them. Okay? I can even make them bigger at the same time or smaller. I think a smaller is cuter. I can shift it even more. I can, you notice that it has, when I select multiple objects, right at the top, look what it says. You can make it straighter. You can distribute it evenly. Try to use this. This is your friend, because let's just put it this way. Oh my goodness, this one's over here. What do I do? So I click. You can also do this. Click all at once, but you notice also click the bottom. No. So then let's just lock the bottom layer so we don't select it. Oh, let's select all of them now. Okay. But then I want this to be centered. Use the top. Center. But but I want it to be centered to the page. Where are you? So then we go into Ah, they don't have it here. Wait, hold on a second. Yes, they do. They have those three dots here, and you not align to selection, but align to canvas. And you click on the middle, and it's done. Everything is centered. Okay? Like I said, Photoshop is all about what you toggle and how much you toggle. So that's why it gets a little annoying. Now, my other thing is, but I want to create all the drop shadows on these all at the same time. I think you guys have noticed how to group things in other like slides, or like how you can slides, PowerPoint, you can group things. Same thing. You select all of them with shift, and I am just gonna put them in a folder. You can drag them to a folder, and then that's already grouped. Or you do shift command G, that's how to group them. Double click it and put the drop shadow. But I don't want the drop shadow like that. Like, there you go. Better. Done. Now you can see from this page to this page, it's simple. It's an easy color story. Okay? I want you to just do the mood page as much as you can. Try your best. At least put some images. Don't be afraid to try. Like, I don't like seeing her hand there, so I'm just gonna make it bigger. There you go. Done. She's fine. Okay. And then next week we're gonna try to do this. Hopefully we have the computers already, and everyone can get their hands on here. Okay. So we can do this in class. I might just not give you homework for color story if we finish the color story here. And then we can move on to the next lesson, which is color customer profile, which is about the same, but we have to do text. Okay? Perfect, guys.